I have a show every Sunday night on Classic FM called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Classical Music, which does not pretend to be encyclopedic, because I don't know everything by any means. It's more a little sort of dig into the interesting byways, sometimes musical, sometimes technical, sometimes biographical or emotional, to how the great music that we love is created. And a lot of ideas for programmes are suggested by listeners. And one of the most perennial questions over the 6 years the show has been running is, what does a conductor actually do? So I'm going to ask you, with the cheek of the devil, Sir Simon Rattle, what do you do?
Well, on the face of it, it's one of the great fake professions, because there are all these musicians, and there is this, hopefully, a silent person in front of them. What is he doing? What is he or she doing, please? It's very interesting. Well, as a student in the academy, Maurice Miles had 10 of us in the conducting class altogether. And one day he said, now what you're going to do is go in front of the orchestra. All 10 of you are going to play the opening bars of the same piece. You're not going to say anything. You're just going to stand there and conduct it. And this was a student orchestra and with very inexperienced student conductors. And the first thing that we all noticed is the orchestra sounded entirely different with every person in front of them. Now, how does one explain that? What is that? I mean, we know, I know that if I play on this piano, it'll sound like a, collection of skeletons, bones, rubbing against each other. If a manual axe comes and sits on it, the first chord will sound like somebody put kind of silk through a gold ring. It'll go whoosh. I mean, how does this happen? I mean, we know it happens with instruments. We know every singer has a different voice, but every conductor makes a difference, even to the basic sound an orchestra makes. Of course, I mean, all music aspires to be, if it's not singing, it aspires to be chamber music. A string quartet is almost the ideal form of concerted music, but the ideal orchestra is just a gigantic overblown string quartet where everybody is listening to each other, but with the best will in the world. There is almost never time for an orchestra to make and agree their own interpretation of everything. And if they do it, it's such an unwieldy group of people that you are basically stuck with whatever you decide. And the most exciting thing about conducting an orchestra and playing an orchestra is that every night is completely different. You have the same things to pack into the suitcase, but they go in different orders, they go in different ways. And people can have ideas, not only the conductor, the players can have ideas which can come in and then everybody has to find a way of making it work. In a way, I mean, I would love to be Jürgen Klopp, but just with hand gestures. But if he could do what he's doing to that team, and actually do it on the spur of the moment with his hands, you would have an idea of what our job is, because it's very clear what an extraordinary difference he made to that group of people. And my God, must there be some ego management in there? But it's done with love and thought and care and intelligence. And he would be a model to any of us who are trying to organise large things. I wish a few politicians on all sides would just go and take a masterclass from him. But in a way, we are doing the same job. We are trying to inspire these extraordinary people to do their very, very best. Because at the end of it all, they are playing it. oh no, you can't. I can't pretend I am playing it. I can make it better or worse, but actually they are playing, and it's my job to enable, and it's my job to try and translate what the composer is saying to the orchestra and then the audience. In some ways, it's almost like an adapter plug in the wall. It should go through you. And one of the things I most miss about my beloved friend and colleague Maris Janssens, who died recently, is that you go to his concerts and he would almost disappear in it. You just think, oh yes, this is just exactly how I wanted to hear this music. But he would disappear into the music enough that you heard the music. I mean, it's a very long way round of saying what it is we do.
But I'm already fantasizing about a regular television series or radio series, instead of Match of the Day, Concert of the Day, with pundits, you know.
It would be something.
Yes.
I mean, thank God we don't have to score.
Going for that
thank God
fortissimo?
we don't have to score goals every time. I mean, whether we could live with that kind of pressure, I don't know.
We're into the third movement now, and they've got it all to do. You know what I mean?
But it is to do. I mean, an orchestra. I mean, thank goodness a football team isn't 100 people, but everybody does depend on each other, and you see what this is. And as a conductor, of course, I can get to know profound things about people without even necessarily knowing their names.
Yeah.
There is something about the connection that you make when making music that goes beyond any normal social interaction.
Well, in the best possible way, music, there's nowhere to hide when you're really expressing music.
No, and you should be telling the truth, and the music insists on it. If I open up a Beethoven symphony, we were about to do the Beethoven Ninth Symphony shortly, the score looks up at you and says, are you ready for this? Are you really going to do this?
And you better be.
Can you cope with this? And will you be as devastatingly honest as the composer is? And won't let you away with anything less. I'm sorry, it sounds like Sood's Corner from Private Eye, but it is true. And the music still speaks to you through these pages. It's a strange thing, because people forget that you can go to an art gallery and you can get Van Gogh or Mark Rothko direct, but the music, most people can't look at a score and have the music speak. We are actually forced to interpret
the filters, yes.
And we better be honest.
2 more questions. What do you do in downtime, as it's now called? Do you listen to music or do you avoid it? And do you sometimes find when you're listening to a new piece that you go into work mode when you should perhaps be in relax mode?
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem for musicians because you aren't doing it all the time. I mean, I have three young children, so the concept
there is
of
no such thing as
the concept of
downtime.
downtime is something in science fiction that you can imagine. I mean, the listening to music. I mean, I, like a lot of musicians, tend to listen to jazz to relax rather than our own music. And I get an awful lot of kind of rap and house music from my kids, and every now and then I can, oh, that's interesting. Oh, but why have they now just done it 1,000 times the same thing? But still, you get a bit of that. But there is a danger that if you listen to something, you start thinking about it and start analysing it. But it's easier for me, for instance, to go and hear a string quartet. That if I see a conductor, I'm immediately watching it. If it's a great performance, then I will forget that. But look, but this is one of the things. On the other hand, we get to deal with this extraordinary kind of volcano of intelligence and emotion every day, and it's the emotional payback it gives you is enormous. But there is the problem that maybe it's not relaxing in that same way. You know, we'll do other things.
Well, perhaps
yes,
you
but
don't- you don't need to
I'm
look
you know,
that way.
yeah.
Yeah, you're relaxed.
I'm more
anyway.
relaxed watching football than going to a concert.
Okay. One last question. Last week saw the launch here, I believe, of or LSO St Luke's. I'm not quite sure where the venue was, but it saw the launch of your new recording of the Elgar cello concerto with Sheku Kane-Mason.
I mean, this is really interesting because everybody thinks of young musicians in terms of kind of extraordinary extroversion and energy or whatever.
And the Sheku effect that's now
but
inspiring
in
people.
fact, of all the cellists I've played this piece with, and they've been a few, he is the most inward. And it seems to me to be a very appropriate look at this piece, which is, I mean, it was really the last great piece Elgar wrote. And of course it's after the First World War, but of course it's also the death of his wife. It's also his feeling of, do I belong in the world? And of course, there are extraordinary forthright things in it, but a lot of it is very inward. And you only have to look at pictures of Elgar, even when he has kind of dressed himself up as a great English gentleman. He never felt quite at home, and you only have to look at the haunted eyes to realize how easily damaged this person was. I mean, of course, he was able to write Land of Hope and Glory, the Pomp and Circumstances March, but the true Elgar was this rather desperate, damaged person. Probably, if he had been Middle European, he would have been Mahler. He would have been a full-blown neurotic. He was very British, so it was within. And the haunted eyes are what we all felt Sheku really got. And this is wonderful. I mean, nobody is pretending that this will be the last word on this concerto, or even his last word. Hopefully, he'll be playing it for the next 60 years.
Well, that was what's so exciting about the performance. He's 20. This is how he feels about it now. And it captures a moment in his life as well as the work.
But the inner sense of stillness and the concentration and poetry and humility of Sheku is really in there. I mean, we were just all mightily impressed. And I suspect this is an orchestra that's not easily impressed, generous as though they are. But also, it was done in a day, as these recordings are, and certain things he had to do again and again and again and again, as one does. And there was never a moment from him. This was always positive, concentrated, and for the music. And to see his entire family sitting up there listening was also really touching, because you realise what a support system is that. And how wonderful to have a family like that, all musicians. No, that was an honour to do, and wonderfully, we'll in next season I'll do the big birthday anniversary concert with the CBSO, my own old orchestra in Birmingham, and we'll play the first concert that the orchestra played, which was conducted by Elgar. And among it was the cello concerto, which was then, of course, a very new piece. This was 1920, and Sheku will play. And so that will be a very touching meeting of families. My God, I started as conductor of the CBSO so long before he was born. Let's not even go there. Yeah.
But I'm getting the impression, Simon Rattle, that you have the highest boredom threshold of just about anyone I've met. I mean, you continue to be absolutely consumed by this great music and will go on discovering.
I mean, let's all remain curious. And what a privilege to be in this work, to be doing what we love that much. Simple as that.